What do you think is one of the most popular displays here at the museum?
Our biggest draw is Old Billy. He is our talking horse. Our
Yes,
animatronic horse
is he
next
still
door.
here?
Yes,
Or
ma'am,
he's in the other building?
He's in the other building.
Well, let's go see him.
All right. All right, we're getting ready to enter the old firehouse, built in 1910. It's firehouse number 1. And as you can see here, part of our renovations that are underway, the painters are putting a fresh coat of red on the doors.
Fire engine
Beautiful
red,
coat of
gotta
red.
love it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let's go ahead and go on in here.
Okay. Be careful what. All right, what we have here is the entrance to the 1910 building. We have our play area. Our play area for the kids is to the left. We'll work our way around to that. And you asked a minute ago what our biggest attraction is, so I'm going to introduce you to them.
All right. Howdy.
This is Old Billy.
Hey, Billy.
The kids absolutely love Old Billy, and what he does is he tells the history of the fire department from a horse's point of view, from when he served on the department. And the reason we have Old Billy here is Old Billy served the department for over 20 years, and he was the only horse that retired from the Memphis Fire Department. He was actually
Really?
on the pension plan.
Really?
I found the documentation the other day on April 1st, 1908 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Old Billy passed for old age. He was 30 years old at his passing.
Wow.
He served under Chief Carroll's reign on the Memphis Fire Department.
Can you play just a little bit
I
of...
can, and this video will start, and Old Billy will talk to you.
Hi there, I'm Old Billy. Thanks for stopping by. I've been around here a long time. In my younger days, the firefighters called me Little Billy. All of us did our best to give faithful service to the citizens of Memphis. Could I tell you some stories? Things were really different back when they depended on us horses to get
That
around
is
town.
really awesome. I bet the boys and girls just love that.
They absolutely love it. They do. They do. This
All
is
right.
our 1910 steamer. It's an Aaron's Fox steamer. It's the last. This is the last steam fire engine that was purchased by the city of Memphis before they transitioned into the motorized fire trucks, which you'll see our first motorized fire engine behind you.
Oh, okay.
It was purchased in 1911 and actually placed in service in 1912 at fire station number 11.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about this. For the boys and girls that might be watching, tell them what a steamer is.
Okay, a steam fire engine, obviously the steam is what produces the pressure to push the water out of the apparatus. Memphis back in the days, the even numbered streets had fire plugs on them and the odd numbered streets had cisterns on them. So if you were lucky enough to get a plug, you'd actually take this hose and connect it to the fire plug, and you'd have your water coming in, and the steam would, through the boiler, would boost the pressure to give the firemen the pressure on their nozzle. The fire truck, the driver, his sole purpose was to drive the fire truck, and when he got to the fire, unharness the horses, take the horses away and cover them, and stay with the horses. That was his job. Now they had a fireman on the back, and fireman not as a fireman today, but a fireman is a guy who kept the fire burning in the fire truck. Okay? And then they had the guys that were actually on the nozzle fighting the fire. This fire truck, if it was the first fire truck to respond to a fire, it responded under full steam. In other words, you saw the black smoke boiling out of it and everything on the way to the fire, and if not, it responded just like it sits. But this fire truck would sit in this firehouse at all times with constant heat and constant pressure on it in case they were called out on a fire. So all he had to do was throw his coal and stuff on the fire and roll on out the door.
So tell us a little bit about the horses in the fire department. Do you know much about how many there were,
I
or?
don't have an exact number of how many horses we had, but yeah, everything here, you can see an example behind you, was pulled by hand at one time, and we have a hose cart under restoration in the other building, and somebody woke up one morning and said, hey, horses can do this job better than a person.
Right.
So that's how horses were integrated in the fire department. And of course, the apparatus got heavier and bigger too, which made it hard for the men to pull.
So is this a bell on the front
That
right
is
here?
a bell, yes ma'am.
Wow.
But we transitioned from horses to motorized apparatus completely. Our last horses have the bill of sale on the wall over there. Were released from the Memphis Fire Department in 1919,
Wow.
December of 1919.
I like this pole that you have too.
And this shows how a fireman would slide the pole from the bed hall where we sleep, to the lower floor where the horses and the apparatus are kept.
Right. So were horses actually in this building?
I'll lead you to where the stables were momentarily,
Oh,
and there's some
nice.
history about that as well. Real
Nice.
cool.
That is nice. Oh, here's something about the firehouse dog.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what this says.
Well, yes, as you know, the firehouse dogs are Dalmatians. They've been recognized by the fire department for many, many, many years, okay? And the dogs would run alongside the fire trucks because what do fire trucks attract mostly? Dogs, right?
Right.
So they keep the stray dogs from running in the horse's path and stuff like that. And also the Dalmatians have a tendency to be deaf, so all the noise that the horses and the sirens and the bells and stuff would make, it didn't frighten them. But they knew their job, and they were right there with the firemen.
Another thing I learned not too long ago from my vet is that Dalmatians have a calming scent to them. Which are you familiar?
I have heard that. I have
Yes,
not heard
they
the
have a
specific
calming
story.
scent, and so they're calming to the horses.
Okay.
And no other dog has that. So
That's cool.
way to go, Dalmatians.
Cool, absolutely.
Okay, now tell us again what this is.
This is the, we call it the Utley because all the Memphis fire apparatus has a nameplate on it. And it's either named after prominent citizens of Memphis, mayors, ex-mayors. Most of them carry the names of the fallen firefighters. We dedicate our apparatus to them. So this one is called the R.A. Utley. It was built in 1911 and placed in service by the Memphis Fire Department in 1912 at fire station number 11. In this picture, you can see the fire truck, but you see the steamer in reserve. So if the fire truck broke down, they still pulled the steamer out.
Wow.
And Memphis at the time didn't have paved streets, so they ran with chains on the tires year-round so they could get traction in the mud and everything.
I did not know that. Wow. And how old did you say this was?
This was built in 1911.
1911. Wow, what a difference a year makes. 1910
To
1911.
Exactly.
What is this right here?
That is an old status board. If a fire company went out, there was a light that came on, and we have watchmen, a person that stays at the desk at the firehouse 24 hours a day.
Uh-huh.
And if a chief came in and said, "I need to know where company number 3 is," he'd say, "Well, they're out on a run," because that number will be lit up.
Oh, okay.
So you knew where your apparatus and your personnel were at all times.
Pretty nice box.
Oh, it's
Tell a
very
little
neat.
bit about this lamp up here.
The lanterns, these are not original to this apparatus, but they're all made for the steam air and stuff like that. So instead of flashlights, we had lanterns. They also marked the streets because you don't see headlights tail lights on the fire
Oh,
truck.
yes.
Even though it had headlights, you didn't see tail lights, so it kept somebody from running into the back end of it.
So do they keep hose on this? Is
They
that
kept
the hose
hose on
bed?
this. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Let's go see what else you have in
All right,
here.
Let's go upstairs. We're on the second floor of the old 1910 firehouse. What you see here is a room that shows the history of the great fires of Memphis. We have a mannequin dressed in turnout so the children will see what we look like when we arrive at their house, and they don't, they're not frightened by our looks. I know we can look pretty scary sometimes, especially in a scary situation for them. It might add, stress to that. What we have here is the wall that shows our union. It talks about our commitment to St. Jude and the Muscular Dystrophy Association through our union, our local 1784. It has some of the older copies of the union bylaws. These date back to the early 1900s.
Wow.
We have a video kiosk where you can roll up a series of fires, and it'll tell you the history of that fire. Let's look at the Harahan Bridge fire here. The Harahan Bridge is one of the bridges that spans the Mississippi to Arkansas.
Wow, when was that? Sorry.
1928.
1928.
Yes. You caught me off guard on that one.
Wow.
But
Very cool.
it has a series of fires, and here again, other than just that, you can see some actual photographs.
Wow, that's a
such as-
baseball.
That was Rustwood Ballpark. That is one of the most memorable fires in the city of Memphis. If you ask anybody about big fires in Memphis, one of the ones I'll probably mention first is Rustwood Ballpark.
What happened?
They had an exhibition game at the ballpark one day, and as you can tell, the stands were built all out of wood.
Right.
After the exhibition game ended, maybe an hour or so after the game, somebody noticed smoke coming from the stands. And by the time the fire department got there, being all wood construction with the trash and debris that was left in the stands, it turned into conflagration.
Wow.
Baptist Hospital was right across the street from it, and the fire burned so hot and intense it actually melted stuff and started small fires inside the hospital.
Wow.
You can go on our website and click on any of these fires as well, and it'll tell you.
Tell
you have
us
a short
more.
video and a narration of the video that tells you all about the fire.
Wow. Look at that.
And these are by far not the biggest, or not the last of the big fires we've had. We've had several since these were put in here.
Bugles for the Chiefs, is that
Bugles
right?
for the Chiefs, yes ma'am.
Explain to people who may not be familiar with it, how a bugle was used.
The bugle was used to direct the fire companies, much like a radio is used today. It was used to give them orders, give them directions and stuff like that. And later in the years, as they were phased out, they were used for presentations such as retirements and awards and things like that. You can see the intricate scroll work and,
Yes, that's
and
beautiful.
dedication, written on the front of that one. And they can still be purchased today, and they're still used today.
Tell a little bit about these.
This is an early hand rattle. You take it and you'd spin it much like a party favor is fashioned after it today.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, back in the day before we had telephones and fire alarm boxes, you had night watches. And they'd walk up and down the street, and if they noticed a fire or something like that, they'd spin that thing around. It's loud.
Is it really?
It is. And it would notify everybody else that there was a fire. They eventually went to the hand gong. Much like a musical instrument, a party favor. And it was loud as well.
Wow.
This area here, in 1955, Memphis Fire hired its first 12 black firefighters. This section right here has videos and stuff that talks about the obstacles that they had to overcome and how they were accepted into the fire service up through modern day. This is just some more miscellaneous artifacts, a logbook from a watch desk.
Do things still just pop up? Like, do people give you items to display, or do you?
It mostly comes from somebody touring the Fire Museum and saying, my dad was a fireman or my great-granddad was a fireman. And the most miraculous thing about this Fire Museum, the records are so well kept and preserved. I'm in the process now of scanning all photographs and archiving stuff.
Wow.
But I've been lucky enough to be able to go, hey, I've got a picture of him. Once I find out their name, and I go get that picture, and I've seen it bring people to tears looking at the pictures of their granddad or their dad, on the fire department, things that they never told them about or were not alive at the time to be able to get.
Right.
So we share this information with them, and we encourage
That is wonderful.
So what they'll do is they'll go home and they'll come back a few days later or call and say, you know what, I've got my granddad's old fire helmet. Would you like to have it?
Oh.
Or I have this book, or I have this logbook, or he had these pictures. And we end up with that stuff here. So the next generation can see that stuff as well.
That is wonderful. So what is this?
This is a replica of the firehouse that we were in. Like I said, this firehouse was built in 1910. We're actually standing in the locker room as it was back then. We have a set of original lockers behind us. When I told you earlier, I'll show you about the stable area where we kept the horses.
Mm-hmm.
In conjunction to where we were, this is where old Billy was, and this is where the play area is now. So when we get down to the play area, keep in mind where these stables were, and I'll show you a little bit of history about the horses.
That's great. We look forward to that.
You can click on the start button here, and it'll bring up a scene that's like our memorial wall outside. It shows each individual fallen firefighter's name. You can click on that name and hear a story about that firefighter.
Oh, that's
How long they
great.
served, when they died, how they died, and their family life as well. And like I said, these are original lockers that were original to the firehouse, and each locker is set up with different era of fire equipment or fire, things that you normally see in a person's locker. Their uniforms, their personal hygiene items, their badges, their trophies, their awards, a manual of the fire department.
These are really nice lockers.
Oh,
Wow.
yes, I can't imagine what they'd be worth today.
What is this down on the right? Is
That's
that
an
a
old
light?
lantern, yes ma'am. It's an old
How did it-
battery-powered lantern.
A battery powered lantern.